All right. Well, welcome everyone. I think we all know each other. And Surrender, you've been around a few times. That I think your face should be known as well. So welcome. We're so glad that you came to join us. Um, Tonight we're excited to have Audrey. Now her name is Audrey Sanders, but she goes by Audrey Lee. And so we're so glad to have you. Um, Audrey is actually, she's an author. She's a 30-year holistic cancer survivor. So we have another cancer survivor, Joanne Bauer, on the line with us as well, that took a holistic approach. She's a biblical health educator, lifestyle medicine counselor, among several other, I'm sorry, hold on. She is known as the 90-Day Purpose Lifestyle Plan and Biblical Based Health Program that she has taught to thousands. It was created to educate those who want real answers to sickness. Learn.
Hello.
Ask you if you can go ahead and mute your phones now. In fact, I'll just mute you. Mute everybody. And Audrey, I'm going to unmute you. Okay. Can you unmute yourself, Audrey? All right. Well, we'll just go ahead, Audrey, and we'll turn it over to you. Welcome again.
So you want me to share screen? Okay. Can you see it?
Yes.
Okay, good. So thank you for this opportunity to share some information that's near and dear to my heart. Having been on this journey for over 30 years, it's a blessing just to be able to help others in the areas that many people have difficulty with. So I've entitled this presentation, How to Have a Healthier Holiday and to Be Safe at the Plate, because I truly believe it's God's original plan. And as I share this information, you'll kind of hear me go back into why this has been so important to me, but more importantly, how it can really bring change into your life if it's something that you choose to do. Now, this is just a disclaimer. Most of the information that I'm going to share with you does come from my 90 Days of Purpose lifestyle plan that I've taught for over the last 25 years. And it's just been a blessing to watch people's lives change. So this is not diagnosing anything, but these little tidbits of information will be things that you can, of course, add to your lifestyle and see things change. So just a caution, the information that you receive will help you to become safe at the plate during this holiday season. That's what my goal is for you. And in Genesis 1:29, we call this the order of God's food. It says, and God said, see, I have given you every herb-bearing seed which is upon the face of the earth, and every tree whose fruit yields seed, to you it shall be for food. It says meat, but food, because we know that food is something that can be classified, or there's a definition. And when it is real food, there's life in it, because there's life in the seed. That's how we actually were developed, from a seed. And so there's a question that I always like to ask people: are you safe at the plate? Because a lot of people don't know. Number one, God wants us to thrive and not just survive. He gives us what we need in the highest quality, and God gives us what we need in the easiest available form. God also provides all our nutritional needs with the food that He's provided for us. So let's talk about food. What is the purpose of food? Food is a substance which is eaten to sustain life, provide energy, and promote the growth and repair of our tissue and nourishment to our cells, but it will not destroy the body. The big confusion about this is that many people get confused about food and its purpose, and eat food for pleasure, for reward, and we do it sometimes just to treat ourselves, not thinking about what we're really supposed to be eating food. Hippocrates, the father of medicine, said, let your food be your medicine and your medicine be your food. And when we look at this picture here, a lot of people who don't want to eat these fruits and vegetables, or vegetables especially, will just eat or take pills in place of doing what I call the right thing. Now, this is an acronym that I use in my classes, and it just is something that I feel are real doctors. I call these guys natural doctors. And they start with godly trust, open air, daily exercise, sunshine, proper rest. And by the way, we have people representing our class that are Dr. Proper Rest, Dr. Lots of Water, Dr. Always Temperate, and Dr. Nutrition. Because we have to know where we're having the problems and how we can fix them. We want to eat real foods and use the natural medicine left here from God for our healing. And God desires us to take care of our precious bodies because they're not our own. They don't belong to us, but we've been given them to use while we're here. And God provided the formula to maintain that which He has created for us to live a long life. When I go in detail about teaching this, I talk about how the body began to break down and the years that we used to live were decreased by hundreds and hundreds of years. God knows what is best as far as our food is concerned, and what our body needs to sustain itself and give Him glory. The original diet was a plant-based diet consisting of fruits and vegetables, nuts, grains, and seeds. And God has provided it in abundance to those those foods in nature, which are the most helpful and nourishing. And if we feed our bodies these foods, this proper nutrition, guess what? Our cells will be able to sustain health. And what they do is give us health or reward us back good health because we do that. So when we eat real food, here's some tips. We want to make breakfast our first meal of the day, and it doesn't have to always begin at the same time. Some people like to eat early, some like to eat late, but whenever you do eat food, make sure it's food like green juices and fresh fruits. These are really good to eat in the morning, especially if you're not good at going to the bathroom, because they help to cleanse the bodies, because fruits are cleansers. So to do just what they're created to do. And we want to eat plenty of raw vegetables with each meal. And so what that means is, so if we're eating a sandwich at lunchtime, we want to make sure we have a salad with it. If one was eating a pizza, you want to have a salad with it and not just pieces and pieces of pizza. And then, of course, for dinner, we can make sure that we get our vegetables in by adding it to our meals. Before sickness even entered, we didn't really eat a lot of meat, but we did eat lots of fruits and vegetables because they were very easy to get, because they were, for the most part, outside of our doors. And we don't just eat because what others are eating, because sometimes we like to do what other people do and taste what other people are tasting. We listen to what they tell us, and we don't always pay attention when we already know what's best. So try not to eat between meals. Usually, if you do eat the foods that your body needs to sustain health, giving you vitamins and minerals, you're not usually hungry as much in between meals. You can think about some of the days when you eat healthier, you'll see that you don't eat as much or snack as much in between. And one thing that I found to be very helpful when eating is not to drink between your meals or with your meals. And what I mean by that is, a lot of times, because we eat so many foods that don't have water content, we tend to want to drink a lot with our meal. And when you do that, what happens is you interfere with the digestion process. And so therefore, we end up with things like leaky gut, acid reflux, or any kind of gut issues, which can sometimes be pretty dangerous if they persist for a long time. So as you can see, it all started at the plate. That's why I want you to be safe. So think about this. What seems to be more extreme, having open heart surgery or changing your lifestyle? When my parents died at the young age of 50 to cancer, they did what the traditional medical people recommended. One did chemotherapy and the other did radiation. And when I was told in my young 30s that this is something that I would probably have to do too, because it, quote unquote, ran in my family. What I do know to be true is that our lifestyle runs in the family. I was taught to do what I did because my parents did what they did. They actually taught me. And so I decided that I would not do that, because my grandmother recommended I see a medical doctor who asked me if I would like to do something different. I didn't know what it was, but but I was willing to do something different because I was somewhat in fear of what I already saw. And what I was recommended to do was change my lifestyle, take some things off of my plate that I had been eating, thinking that I was doing the right thing. But what people don't realize is we live in a drug-oriented society. Our food and water is drugged. We take drugs to cure just about every physical problem, and often we're even taking processed foods that have been just about drugged before we even eat them. Our vegetables are even injected before we put them in our body, so we have to be careful of the types that we even purchase. But when we think about what a drug is, Webster's dictionary says it's a substance other than food intended to affect the structure or function of the body. It's been said that 90% of all sicknesses can be traced back to an unhealthy diet. Now, the medical industry is not going to tell you this, and don't get me wrong, I have nothing against the medical industry or the things that they do, because for people that don't know what they don't know, they need the medical industry. But when you know better, it's your job and your assignment to do the right thing. One of God's natural laws would be of gravity. So when we think about gravity, if you stood at the top of a building and wanted to jump down, that would be considered gravity because you would definitely fall down. Well, God created man to be well and to have perfect health without ever being sick. And that doesn't mean that that doesn't happen, because we do have choices in our life when it comes to things that we do, especially with our health. But God programs man's brain to respond automatically to foreign matter when it enters the body. So we don't even care anymore sometimes about what we're eating, because when we're eating, we're supposed to build our bodies and not tear them down. But unfortunately, we did not know, and some of us still don't know, that these are the very things that we're doing. But I'm going to give you good news by the end of the presentation today. So let's talk about sickness is not natural, because it isn't. If a person is sick and wants to get well, that person has to stop violating the laws that cause the sickness in the first place by stop cooperating with the actual law. And it's a simple thing to do if you have the mindset to do it. It wasn't made to be difficult for us. These are the laws that are sometimes ignored or drugged or surgically removed in order to suppress symptoms. The results would usually lead to more sickness and death, and sickness and disease, and sometimes an even untimely death, like we've even been seeing with this environment that we're in right now with COVID. They tell a lot of people, or they tell many people, that if you have preconditions before this COVID has gotten here, that you're probably, quote unquote, be some of the people that will be dealing with this issue. But there are so many things that we can do to address that, like flus or colds or anything else, and they're not difficult to do. But first, we have to take personal accountability. The health laws are irreversible natural laws established by God. It doesn't matter if you're a Christian or a non-Christian. If a person violates the natural laws pertaining to the body and health, that person will personally reap the consequences of the violation sooner or later. It is inevitable. Now, because I talked about us living in this drug-oriented world, if we have a headache, we're taught to take a pill. If we can't sleep, we take a drug. And this is all about drugs. And drugs, another name for drugs, are actually poison. If a pregnancy isn't desired, we take another drug. If we're nervous or depressed, we're taught to take a drug. Drugs are even used to slow down an overactive child, and when the child's problem is usually caused by the drug that they've been consuming, and sometimes the food that we've been teaching them to eat or drink. Now, these violations of God's laws, found in 1 Corinthians 6:19 through 20 says, "For ye are bought with a price. Therefore glorify God in your body and in your..." And we have to think about that when it comes to our health. Now, let's be honest. Everybody doesn't want to eat fruits and vegetables all the time. We just sometimes just want to eat what we want to eat. But even if you just ate those things on holidays, which is something that people don't do, you'd be better off. But that means that you're setting that up as a special occasion. And we weren't ever created to eat some of the things that we eat 3 times a day, 7 days a week, and 365 days a year. We were not. And so we have to put things in balance so that we can live a healthier life. Now, this is a friend of mine, Dr. Scott Whitaker, who wrote this book. Pretty amazing. He actually is doing work over in Africa right now. What does the Bible say about medicine? Medicine is just what it says in Revelations 18 and 23. For by sorcerers or drugs, all nations were deceived. And I believe that's true today. A lot of people are being deceived because the drug industry or the pharmaceutical industry that we know of is actually teaching us to choose medicines first and not last. So let's look at some of the things that we could do to turn this whole situation around. Fruits are the basic nutrients that we should be eating. And we talk about fruit and the basic nutrient being food. Some of the things that, believe it or not, are food are not in a food form. Like air is food for our body. The leaves of the tree provide our body with oxygen. Water, our bodies are more than 65% water. Our organs, our brains, our lungs, our liver, all of our tissues, they have high water content. Even sunlight, we call that the doctor in the sky, but it's locked into every seed. So that's why when the trees are receiving the sunlight, they're receiving life. And we do too when we're outside in that sunlight, which is our natural vitamin D. The earth, that's the soil, the dust in the ground, which is so important because that's where all of our good food is, because it gives man optimal health and vitality. All these foods provide all the basic nutrients in the highest quality, easiest available form, and they're designed in the original plan for man to thrive. So let's look at what is the order of the nutrients of food. These are high quality foods, that is. When we talk about air, as I just mentioned, we can only live 3 to 5 minutes without it. Water, 30 days. Sunshine, we can live months without it. As we know, we go through seasons where there's not a lot of sunlight. And then the earth, which is where our food comes from, God took the dust in the earth and created man. So we're even created from the soil or the food or the place where our foods were created from. So when we think about all of these basic places that we're talking about in Revelations 22:2, so we're talking about food, let's talk about our medicine. It said the leaves shall be for the healing of the nation. So we know that all the leaves have nutritional, or I should say medicinal properties to heal our bodies. We just need to know what they are and how to use them. So when we think about the different levels of health, because there are different levels, believe it or not, when we look at abundant health, that's a person that has dynamic vitality, the body working in great order, body, mind, and spirit. Optimal health, that's a person that has general sense of well-being, biochemical and bioenergetic balance. That means things seem to be working well, at least on the outside, as what we can see. And then suboptimal health would be degenerative conditions. We call those autoimmune diseases. And I call these dead men walking or the walking sick, because sometimes this is a difficult place to be because people are really struggling in their health and they don't really know what's wrong. They don't know what's causing the problems, and they don't even really know how to fix those. And then let's talk about debilitating illness, because that's a category too. And these are people that are in what's called advanced degeneration or disabling illnesses. But if we eat some of the basic nutrients that God wanted us to eat, like the air, water, and sunlight, some of the top 3, and then the foods from the earth, like our fruits, vegetables, our nuts and seeds, and then we can add in grains and legumes. All these come from the soil, the trees, and the vines. These are really, really good foods that keep our body in that optimal and abundant health category. When we tend to fall in the sub-health areas and the debilitating areas, then these are areas that when we eat foods like heavy, I should say, flesh foods, dairy products, and processed food, we become processed people. So just pay attention what you're looking at. You're probably thinking about what you'd be eating today. What side of the fence do you think or feel that you're on? So looking at that quality, the high quality and low quality, you have to make a decision of where you feel that you are. If you're eating these high quality foods, you're probably doing a good job of having somewhat what we call ideal health. And the people that fall in this category, believe it or not, about 5% of the people that are really there. People that fall in that low grade, people kind of just hanging around. They don't really, I don't say don't complain a lot, but the little bit that they do complain about, they feel, well, everybody else is going through it, so I must be dealing with what everybody else is dealing with. Or because we get older, this is what everybody else deals with. But I'm going to show you how some of the very foods that we choose for our plate keeps us unsafe. And so in that poor health conditions, these chronic conditions, there's about 15 to 20% of people that are in this category. And then we find that sometimes if we continue on this journey, we'll find ourselves in the category of 75% in that category. So we want to be careful of how we're taking care of ourselves. But these are some three. I mentioned that I was going to share 3 things that are so important that I want you to be mindful of this holiday season so that you'll have healthier health and better quality health as you enter in. You don't want to leave out of this holiday carrying an extra 10 or 20 pounds. When we think about SOS, SOS equals danger, and I'm going to show you how it does. And what I mean by SOS, I mean sugars, oils, and salts. So let's take a look at how that's broken down. So looking at these sugars, salts, and substitute sweeteners, this is a dangerous place to be. And I put some up here that you probably may or may not know are not so good for you. Like you see the agave, we've been told that that's a healthier sugar to use, but it actually isn't. I'm going to give you some options that are better for you. And then you see that little honey in the bear. Well, that's not a healthy sweetener. And so we're going to give you some substitutes for that, but definitely don't buy the honey in the bear. And of course, we see sodas and pizzas, cookies, all of our favorite snack or junk food. That's why they probably call it junk food, because it is. But we can show you some alternatives that will help you to get out of that place that we feel after we eat some of these things. So the first one I want you to cut out is sugar, white processed sugar. Sugar is considered a poison and is similar to a drug that we all may know of called cocaine and heroin. And this has been stated in the Huntington Post. This is an article that was written there. What's worse for you, sugar or cocaine? And they found that because both of them are refined to the point that they give the body the same attributes after they're going inside the body, we're actually eating liquid candy. And so some of the unrecognized for some, but recognized for others, hidden processed ingredients on the back of your food labels are things like high fructose corn syrup, dextrose, sucralose. And just think of anything ending in OSC. If it's an OSC, it's probably some type of a sugar. Maltodextrin, which is your processed chips and things like that that make sweetness so that you don't think it's sugar, but it actually is. Sucralose, aspartame, and saccharin. And I'll break a few of those down a little bit more for you. So the sin, sugar, is something that's actually addictive. The average American begins their addiction to sugar shortly after birth when a nurse puts a bottle of sugar water in an infant's mouth. The next sugar is then added to the infant's formula that we've been told and taught to give our children because, of course, it is more convenient, but we could make it ourselves. It's just that we haven't been taught to do that. It hasn't been shown to us to do that. And then the commercial baby food industry puts sugar into every processed food or products that babies' taste buds get adjusted to. We call these Franken food products. And so you see Enfamil there, you see baby food. These are really not the best for children to have. Now that you know that they do have a green food and organic foods, which are a little bit better for them. But if you can take your peas that you make yourself and blend them yourself, that's actually even better for the baby. So whatever you can do without going into a process, getting into the process line will be better suited for your child. Now, sugar is dangerous to our bodies, and it says that the average intake of sugar by every man, woman, and child in our country is in an excess of 150 pounds or more. And that's approximately 25 to 51 pounds sugar or bags per year. That's a shopping cart. Now, I don't quite eat sugar like that, but somebody is probably taking my batch too. So just be mindful that we want to just pay attention a little bit closer to what we're actually putting in our mouth. Let's look at these substitute sweeteners. Now, when I teach about these, it's really surprising that we find these everywhere. They're in every restaurant. They're in every place that we go to, from our airports to even our churches. They set them out there for us to use because people don't want to eat white sugar. And it's a good thing that they don't. But let's look at what this really is. The artificial sweetener known as aspartame. Aspartame disease is what comes from it. And there's about 5,000 products on the market that contain this aspartame called Equal. But what it does, it changes the body and the brain chemistry. This is something that a lot of us are dealing with, or people are dealing with. I don't want to say us, because we don't know. But this dangerous sweetener is something that we don't want to take in our bodies. Here are some of the problems that aspartame does to our body. And if you have any of these symptoms and you don't know where they're coming from, go back and look at your table. Headaches, seizures, dizziness, numbness, tingling in your fingers, fibromyalgia caused by increased weight gain, cravings, insomnia, causing birth defects, numbness in your legs, depression, vertigo, shooting pain, joint pain, and mood swings. This is all caused by this blue packet called NutraSweet. Another thing I want to bring to your attention is the color of those packets. When we think about those colors, the first thing that comes to mind is a baby, a little boy, a little girl. And if you don't know which one, then you, of course, choose yellow. But what you don't know is these are subliminal advertising messages that they send to you, letting you think that there's really no harm, when the problem is there is. So when we think about that sweet and low, that saccharin, this is actually carcinogenic, and it says so on the package. But we still drink it. We still take it and use it because we don't want all the calories. So we think we're subtracting our calories, but we're adding a chemical, which makes things even worse. And let's look at the Splenda. Now, Splenda is under scrutiny for false advertising, and it's not even made from a sugar as it's claimed. It's a chemical. And I remember when I used to have a gentleman in our class who worked for Splenda, he would come in and teach about Splenda and how they couldn't even allow it to touch their bodies. They wore these suits, white suits inside that would cover their face and hands and shoes and everything because of its danger to the body. But if people are eating these, one thing you want to know is that when Alzheimer's disease came on the market, it came when these sweeteners were introduced to our world. And not only do we know that babies can't talk, they don't walk yet, they still drool. If we're on these sweeteners, these substitute sweeteners, it would take us all the way back as an adult to what we were like as a child. Our diapers now will become Depends. We'll be drooling because we can't talk very well. And our minds are not as clear or crisp as they used to be because the sweeteners have dulled our brain signals. So it's a dangerous place to be. And these three different unhealthy sugars, as we mentioned, this Splenda not being made from it, Splenda has replaced aspartame as the number one sweetener. And Splenda is actually sucralose sugar, also known as an artificial sweetener. So make sure that you read the labels. It's not important that you have something called diet. I tell people diet food is really death food because if you take tea, that's exactly what it leads to if we're taking these in. So don't use these as a substitute. And if you're one of those people that when you do take these types of sweeteners in and you tend to get things like a low-grade migraine headaches or any kind of muscle aches, think back on the sweeteners that you're using and just start to remove them slowly and watch your body turn from where it's actually headed. So let's begin from within. Let's start with some sugar solutions, some better choices. for our sweeteners. And this is to replace that white processed sugar that we've been taught and trained to eat. The first one would be fruit. Fruit is the first and best choice because I call this God's natural candy. And when it's good fruit, it tastes good because it's organic, it's grown right from the tree, and it tastes just like we want. Anybody can think about how a great watermelon tastes when you eat it, or apple when you take it off the tree, and it has all of its vibrantness that it's supposed to have in it, and it just tastes like, as we called it back in the day, some more. Like, I want another piece. And that's what it's supposed to taste like. Children should be craving and asking for this. And if they're not, then that's because it's probably, number one, maybe not organic, and it doesn't have all the nutrients because of the way it's been grown. The other choice for sweetener would be dates. Dates that don't have sulfites, especially, and including that figs or raisins or some fruits, cranberries, all of those in that category of dried fruits, they should not have sulfites. Sulfites really are dangerous to the brain. But when I sweeten things, I puree my dates, and that just means blends them, that or figs. When I make my smoothies or my sauces, that's what I use my first go-to. Another sweetener that can remind people of that Splenda, sucralose, and sweeten low would be stevia. And make sure it's not Trivia or some other substitute name that has stevia in it. It has to be the true stevia. Otherwise, you're taking in still another chemical. And you don't want them to keep tricking you. You want to know the truth. Then the next one, and these are at the bottom, so I tell people that's why the asterisk is next to them, because I want you to choose the best first and then use these as options if you have to. If you're going to use honey, you want a raw, unprocessed honey. Make sure the word raw is on the container. And usually the honey that is raw, it's kind of thick and grainy, if you will. It's not see-through or translucent. That's when you know it's a real honey. One that comes to my mind that I use occasionally or once in a while is Manuka honey because it's medicinal. It doesn't smell like a honey. And many raw honeys come in different colors according to the season or time of the year that they've been harvested. That's important to know. The other one is maple syrup, but make sure it's grade B. That means it has more nutrients in it. And if you've ever done the Master Cleanse, it's actually the sweeter that's recommended for that to balance sugar levels, hormones, and so much more. It's a great detox and one that you can drink even on a daily basis. If you have the recipe, just Google the Master Cleanse and then make sure that you add a little cayenne to give it a kick. So let's talk about our next ingredient that we talk about that's or food substance that's really could be very dangerous, and that's fat. So we can see here, we know that animals don't take a visit to Africa, but have you ever seen a giraffe that changed his structure? Well, this is what happens to us when we change our structure from changing our food. Our body structure changes. And so when I visited the zoo, I saw this sign and it says, "Please do not feed the animals." Zoo animals have special diets, properly balanced for nutritional needs. Please, for their health and your safety, do not feed them anything, not even leaves. So that just told me this, the nutritionist that was there, she said, we don't feed animals human food. Boy, was that an eye opener, because we could kill the animals or cause harm to them. And if the animals can't eat the foods that we eat, don't you need to wonder what we're really eating? That made me think. So let's talk about this oil called fat. And I always say, ain't nobody got time for fat. I don't know about you, I don't. But when we think about fat and what happens, and we're talking about bad fats, so I'm going to give you some options, but I'm talking about the bad fats that cause problems coming from a lot of the places. E. coli, we know that comes from what? An animal. Salmonella, and these are all have been recalled even in our food chains. Mad cow's disease, bird flu, parasites, clogged arteries, diabetes or diabesity, stroke and heart disease, and of course, last but not least, an untimely death. These are where fat is clogging up our highways inside of our bodies, our capillaries, arteries, and veins. And we don't want this to happen, and it doesn't have to, but we have to do something about it. If your diet is continuously consisting of the sugar that I just mentioned and the fats that we really shouldn't have, then you are probably in that danger zone that I talked about earlier, and you want to get yourself out of that place and turn away from that direction into a better place. So, the other fats I want to talk about that we could find is fats that we find in some of our foods that we cook in. Fat was never really meant to go in the body as a food. As a matter of fact, you wouldn't go to your cabinet, pour into a spoon a teaspoon of oil and eat it. We wouldn't do that. And so that you know, just a teaspoon of oil is equivalent to 120 calories. Who has time for that? So let's talk about some of these fried meats and where saturated fats come from. Or sometimes now we can just about get any of our vegetables fried. You don't want to do that. Did you know that a perfect baked potato is about 30 calories? And when we fry it and turn it into French fries, now it's 500 calories. Or fried rice versus steamed rice. We know that one tastes better, but it's not better for us. And then when we use these toxic oils called corn oil, canola oil, and vegetable oils, these are very, very dangerous and toxic. So we definitely don't want to use those. Canola isn't even an oil, it's a man-made oil. And when people ask me about vegetable oil, I always ask, well, which vegetable is really in that bottle? Because that's really not what it looks like. If it came from a vegetable, it would usually be the color of that vegetable, just like an olive oil would be the color of an olive, unless it's the third, fourth, or fifth pressing. So here is where we want to look at our fat. And so this is where you would have time for fat. When you get your fat from real foods, what you'll know is that it's attached to nutrition, like walnuts, fat and fiber, avocados that really sustain the body. And I use these in place of fat butter or, of course, margarines in my food, and definitely never margarine. Margarine is just plastic, by the way. Olive oil. And what I mean by olive oil, I don't mean cooking with olive oil per se, because when I'm working with people with diabetes, I have to take that oil off of their plate because I don't want it to close the pancreas so that the insulin can get in and out. So this is something that we work with. So just listen clear and close by. Then coconut. Coconut is really healthy for the body, and it helps to burn the bad fat in our body. Sesame seeds and hemp seeds. Now, all of your seeds are actually healthier than your nuts. They're smaller in size, but they're power packed with nutrition, helping to be a cancer fighter food. So that's definitely what you want to choose first. And if we think about fat, 5 pounds of fat, 5 pounds of muscle, which would you rather have? 5 pounds of muscle, absolutely. But we can make sure that we have that when we change the fat that we choose in our diets. So here are some solutions, oil solutions when it comes to eating better choices of oils. Fats should come from real food, like avocados, nuts, seeds, and olives, black seeds, chia seeds, hemp seeds, herbs, and even essential oils, olives, and coconut. These are all real fat and fatty substances that we can use to incorporate into our food now instead of some of the toxic fat that we're using. And I'm sure I'll have a lot of questions on this, so just hang on and jot down your questions so I'll be able to ask those in a few minutes. So because we live in this drug-induced society, the drug use and safety, all drugs, as I mentioned, are poison to the body, and we cannot be drugged or poisoned into health. And so some of the foods that we just talked about are doing just that. And God would not have given man the assignment for finding a cure for what he created. He knows that he has an assignment for us, so he wants to make sure that we do it. It's the devil that's the culprit, and he knows that he came to kill, steal, and destroy, and we have to realize that too and not get on his side. So let's talk about that last S in SOS, and that's salt. Salt is dangerous, and we're talking about sodium chloride, that white table salt. And I have a saying that I tell my students, if the food is white, know what it is, especially if it's been dyed and, changed or altered, but it's used as a preservative to kill bacteria. That's a good thing. but it can lead to congestive heart failure by destroying our muscles, our valves, our arteries, and even our coronary system. It's actually very toxic to the body. Salt is, however, important to our body. It also helps the body with the natural sodium because our body needs the minerals from it. But you can get that from celery. And I know that doesn't sound tasty, but it is. I actually use a celery seasoning, which is actually celery that's been dried out into a salt form. And it really tastes like salt. It's pretty amazing. And it's green in color, just like celery. Another alternative would be Himalayan or pink salt. It has quite a few more minerals in it. But when we're talking about this dangerous table salt, it's hidden in a lot of over-the-counter processed foods that you find in your cabinets. And so because of this, this is a natural occurring rock crystal or like a sea salt. And when we take in our natural salt substitutes, the salt that we're using actually is colorful. And you will want to use your salt when you're seasoning your food at the end, not so much in the middle. But at the end, you don't want to do it in the beginning because therefore you'll have better control of how much salt you're actually putting in your food. So try to season your food when it comes to salting it at the end, not so much at the beginning. Now let's talk about this Himalayan sea salt being a good choice. It is a wonderful choice. It, first of all, is pink in color, so you know the difference. It has 84 minerals, which are really good for the body, especially for women in their hormonal balance. It's an important element for keeping a proper balance for every, I want to say when it communicates to the hypothalamus, which communicates to our entire body. And every cell of our body even needs salt. So our body relies on salt to keep our bone density, proper circulation, and stabilize blood sugar levels, believe it or not. I'm talking about the good salt now. So when the salt is correct, it's used in many, many ways, as I mentioned before. One of them that's so important to women is for hormonal balance. So make sure you get your salt, but get it from the right places. So here are some substitutes that you can use for salt or seasoning that hopefully will have your taste buds happier. Herbs of any kind in your cabinet, making sure that when you do buy your seasonings, make sure they're not irradiated, which means heated. And make sure that when you do use them, that you look on the labels and make sure there's not salt hidden on them or even sugars, because sometimes a lot of our seasonings have had the hidden words that I just mentioned found in the sugar category, believe it or not. Lemon and lime are really great substitutes for salt. When you squeeze it right over your rice or over your lettuce, salads, it's really a great tasty change. And then sea vegetables, which are awesome for the body and balancing and hormonal support and all the things that our body needs so we don't have hormone problems. That's a really great one. And then, as I mentioned, pink Himalayan salt. And last but not least, Celtic or Celtic, you may have heard it, sea salt. It's actually gray in color. Those are some of your substitutes. And so make sure you put them on your list for the holiday. That's so that when you create and prepare your foods, you'll find that they'll taste better, that they'll feel like that you've done a better job at what you're doing in the kitchen when you're cooking, but they do make the food more flavorful. And so good, healthy health facts, and this is something from Dr. Lester Breslin. It says, just by switching from a bad lifestyle to a healthier one can expect to add as much as 14 years to their life. So this is a good change that you can make to bring a better change to your health. One of the things that I wanted you to see here, because this was important to me, if our food products were labeled honestly, they probably would be something we wouldn't buy. Colon cancer dogs, for sure diabetes drink, ADHD flakes. These are some of the things that are actually in our stores, but not labeled like they should be because they do not help our bodies to heal like they should be and to work and function like they should be. So be mindful of that. And so, as it says in Deuteronomy 30:19, Jesus said, I have set before you life and death, blessings and curses. Therefore, choose life so that both you and your seed may live. And so with that being said, you do amazing, healthier recipes for the holiday. I just chose a few This is a peach blueberry cobbler. Not a lot of cooking or to it, but it's really amazing, fresh, vibrant taste to it. And just to make it even a more, say, sustaining or a delicious dessert, you're going to add a little bit of a vanilla ice cream with it made out of bananas. Pretty easy to do. No dairy for those who are lactose intolerant or have problems with dairy. This is pretty easy, made with frozen bananas, a little almond milk, some ice, vanilla, and some dates. Boom, you've done it, and it's already ready to go. You can scoop it up and throw it right on top of your dessert. And if you're not one that likes fruit for dessert, now you can have your Mexican brownie. Now, I gave this one a little kick by adding a little cayenne powder in it, so it makes it a little spicy. And you, like I said, you'll get this recipe. And I couldn't leave you without a healthy choice, which is this is a marinated kale salad in one of my cookbooks. But this is one of the favorite dishes that what I would make for my students because they couldn't believe that kale could taste so good. And so this is one of them where you can take it up a notch or down by adding curry or any other things that you like. But this is pretty simple enough for you to get the hang of it and taste some amazing, the amazingness of a salad that can be not only good for you, but good to you. And then a creamy dressing. A lot of times people always ask me, I like creamy dressings. I go, okay, good. So let's make one. And so this is my Caesar salad dressing. It's pretty awesome. People are really surprised that it tastes pretty close to the Caesar dressing that you would use in the a Caesar salad, which is pretty simple. It's really just lettuce, romaine lettuce, your croutons, a little bit of your favorite, I think cheese or Parmesan. I use nutritional yeast, but that's pretty much what that is for Caesar salad. So my question to you as we close for this evening is, are you safe at the plate? And just remember this, it's not the food in your life, but the life in your food that counts. So make everybody count. So with that being said, I just want to see if there are any questions that anybody has that I can answer. I don't know if you want to put anything back up just in case you need me to put it back up?
Your hold on one second.
Okay.
You mean put up your last PowerPoint?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, you can put it back up. And are there any questions? Everyone is muted, so please feel free to unmute yourself. I'm trying to go through and unmute you, but feel free to unmute. Great presentation, Audrey. A lot of great
Yes, really great
Awesome.
information.
Awesome. I'm so glad.
Thank you for the recipes.
When you get the recipes at the bottom, should you have any questions, I have my contact information where you can go right to my website. And I wanted to be able to offer to everyone, Dornita, a free 30-minute consultation. They can contact me within the next 7 days or so to set it up. And they just go to audreyleehealth.com. And that's AUDREELEE.com. Health.com, and they can set that up. But they'll see when they get their recipes. And I hope you enjoy them.
And I actually have them as well, so I can share them out. But there are some amazing recipes and no cooking. And last year I think was the first time I had the experience of eating raw appetizers, my meal, and dessert, and it was just amazing. So I'm hoping once COVID is over, we can get you to come back live and in person, and we get an opportunity.
Oh, absolutely.
To taste, what the raw really tastes like.
Sure.
Yes.
And does anyone have any questions?
I do, Sister Dornita. This is Tony.
Mm-hmm.
You know what? Nutritional yeast. What exactly is that?
So nutritional yeast it's a B vitamins, but what it does, it has a taste of cheese. A lot of times you can use it in a dish to give it a cheesy flavor for those people who have to get off of cheese or cut back on cheese because they can't have it or shouldn't have it. And I use it to put on top of, let's say, a pasta dish, maybe lasagna. For my grandchildren, mac and cheese. The color I give it is from squash. A lot of times, or carrots. You just have to, people eat with their eyes. They need it to look good first before they even stick their fork in it. So you want to make sure that you're pretty good food. You have to have food artists. You need to be a food artist to make food taste good.
And where can you purchase something like that?
Whole Foods would be a great place to taste it, to take, to get it. Make sure that you buy it fortified, because that's important. You want to make sure there's lots of stuff like that on the market. But I buy mine from there and sometimes on Amazon because that way I can choose. The one I buy is from Frontier, Frontier.
Okay. Thank you.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you very much.
You're welcome. Hope you guys enjoy.
Oh, I enjoyed your presentation. It's wonderful.
Oh, you're welcome.
Okay. All right. Well, if there are no other questions, again, I want to thank you, Audrey, for this presentation. Our pastor, Carmen, is pastor with you or no?
It's not.
He's not. Okay. I missed his prayer today.
Oh.
Seeing his face reminds me of prayer. So if there is nothing else, again, thank you so much, Audrey, and we will go ahead and close out. We'll close out with prayer. Would you like to pray, Audrey, or you want me to go ahead?
Oh, I sure can. Father God, we just thank you for this time. We thank you, Lord, for your protection. We thank you for your safety. We thank you for just letting us know what we need to do just to keep our temples in good working order. We know that we're fearfully and wonderfully made, created in your image, and we're so grateful to that. We thank you that in this time of COVID that we're going through, that we have answers, solutions, and we can start right at our dinner table, our breakfast table, and our lunch table. And not only that, we can not only just start there for ourselves, but we can share it with our family and our friends, our children, and anyone we come in contact with, because it's not a difficult thing to do. It just takes discipline. And we know that with you, all things are possible.
Amen.
So as we go into this Thanksgiving season, I just pray a special prayer for everyone and those that they'll be around, that they're protected and kept safe from all hurt, harm, and danger, and that they can enjoy their family and this time that you've given us to enjoy, and that we put our trust in you and no one else. These are our blessings we just thank you for. Give you glory, honor, and praise. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Amen.
Everyone have a beautiful evening.
And a great Thanksgiving.
And a great Thanksgiving.
Same to you.
Same to you.